Well, great. Seb, very pleased to have you on as a guest on Culture Your Creative. It's been a long time since I've seen you face to face. I'm very blessed and grateful to actually call you a friend, and you're an incredible inspiration. Actually, Seb, before we get into this, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago when I first met you. I think it was an event that you hosted at Soho House in West Hollywood. And instantly, I found your energy contagious, incredibly, in a good way, right? There's just such a magnetic energy that you possess and you portray. So introduce yourself, Seb. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll go a bit deeper into your background.
Sure. Oh, mate, that's so nice of you to say. Yeah, I got all right energy. Look, I remember it. Yeah, I think I was hosting I can't remember what it was. I think I was speaking, just sharing my story at Soho. And yeah, that's when we met. And likewise, it's great to reconnect with you. And of course, virtually, as everyone is nowadays. Well, essentially, I'm Sebastian, for anyone who doesn't know me, and I'm sure it's the majority of you. I have this thing called 100 Things. And it's basically it's a movement. It's become a movement, and it started off as just a personal life decision for myself. And I guess people now know it at this point, 12 years after having started, as a bucket list themed journey, which has turned into a community of people who not only go out there and strive to achieve their own goals, and we obviously help facilitate that whole process of creating a list and activating a list, but acts of kindness as well. So it started 12 years ago. I lost a friend of mine called Chris. I was 25 at the time. He was 24. And I was in Canada at the time, and I got a phone call overnight with the news. And it stopped me in my tracks and made me reconsider, how I was living, really. And I just realized very suddenly in the moment that I wasn't living well. And I thought about Chris's life, and I thought that he was. I don't think he had any regrets about his life. And then I just thought about mine, and I thought, geez, I would have a lot. And I just quite literally thought, well, how would I change that? And I got a piece of paper and a pen, started writing down things that I would like to be able to say I did, or at least tried to do before I died. And I looked at this bit of paper, and I thought, well, why am I not doing it? If that's my truth, and I want to be happy, so I realized also I just wasn't happy, I should do it. So I dropped everything to pursue this list, very personal thing. And then it accidentally resonated with a big audience. And here I am today, and there's some really exciting things happening, and I feel like I've just got started. And having said that, a lot of wonderful things have happened. Lives have been saved because of 100 Things. So it's super really humbling, and equally something that I'm gonna turn into a bigger thing.
So Seb, let's go back a bit. You said 12 years ago you were 25 when you got the phone call, and there was one thing that you sort of added in along what you just said, in that you also didn't feel happy. What I want to ask you, why do you think, I mean, this is not nationwide, this is global. Why do you think people just aren't happy in their life? And you had a wake-up call at a young age, but I'm talking about people in, halfway through their life, later in life, still aren't happy. What's your take on that?
I think there's loads of reasons. There's heaps, and I can't address all of them, obviously. But from my experience and through my community and speaking to a lot of people over the years, it seems that one key thing is that not a lot of people give themselves permission to be happy, to give themselves a moment to actually consider what they would like to do, because within our society, often that's deemed as selfish. And I think that it's an insult. You're a selfish person. How dare you think about yourself? And and I don't think it's selfish. I retrospectively look back at what I've done, and I actually think it's selfless. Because I think if you look after yourself, you are also able to look after other people. So, I mean, I think permission's a really important one. I think we're definitely also influenced by our environment, be it events like Corona, being isolated, but also people, institutions we're part of, generic kind of pressures that we all feel, social pressures, generational trends. Be like our parents should be, and all that kind of stuff. And I know everyone knows this, but I'm just telling you what I see, most days through my connections. I also, interestingly, there's a lady called Bronnie Ware, who's a palliative care nurse in Australia. I don't know if you've heard of her. And she looks after people who are about to die. And she wrote a book called The Regrets of the Dying. It's 5 regrets, the most common regrets. And I don't know if I'll remember them all, but I'll try and get them out because I think there's so much to learn from this. One is I wish I'd let myself be happier. One is I wish I'd worked less. One is I wish I'd connected with friends more often. One is I wish I had expressed my emotions more. And the other will come to me, hopefully. But yeah, so and what's really interesting to me about all of those is they're all choices. You know, it's not things that we hope might happen to us one day. We're entirely accountable for what we do in our lives. That's my belief. I think if you allow yourself permission to consider yourself, your values, the principles, the way you want to live, and you make a choice to pursue that by way of, a list of things, professionally, personally, whatever else, I've certainly found that I'm very accountable for what we do. We're not in the passenger seat. We're in the driving seat. So yeah, there are a lot of reasons why there is a sense of helplessness at times, or mental unwellness, or whatever the term is. But equally, I think a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is in our hands to change.
Yeah. What you said, Seb, about giving yourself permission, I see it in life all the time, and I can think of family members or people I know where that kind of age-old societal structure of grow up, get married, have children, have a job, fitting in all of those boxes never actually gives you an opportunity to really believe in yourself and go deep inside and see actually what you want from life, what you can be of service for in life.
Absolutely.
You're just kind of put into these boxes. And I think that, as you were saying it, I was thinking so many people get married and have children at a young age. I know one of my cousins has done this. She has 4 children and I know she loves them, but I can't help but think that they've gone into certain modes of their life and not, they're kind of almost shying away from and pushing aside themselves. Oh no, I'm going to look after my children now. And then when the children grow up, well, they don't really know what to do because they only have themselves, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a really intricate and tricky balance to get right. Because of course there's wisdom to be taken from a lot of other people, including our parents and teachers and all that kind of stuff. But equally, like, it's not all that relevant. Not all of it is relevant anymore. Although our parents, I feel, and I'm not a psychologist, by the way. I don't want to come across as one of those people who positions himself as a psychologist. I'm not, but I do think that our parents do their best to teach us what worked for them at a time that was entirely different to now. The world is completely different. Just one generation ago, it was another color, and yeah. So I think applying the same things, tactics, strategies that they use, but now, of course, it's not going to work. And I also think the educational system's a little outdated. I do see that that's changing. But yeah, so how do you know what to take on board and what to leave? That's tricky. But of course, you don't want to be just like a gate where you're just left open and everything and anything that's told to you or suggested to you, you take on board. So it is tricky, but I guess that's also an important thing, that hopefully you have a role model, be it your parents or friends or whatever, that you learn to have a little bit of intuition about this sort of stuff, or a little bit of courage, because typically we always hear that it takes a dark moment to have that aha epiphany, let's say, in life, whether it's losing someone close to you, as it was for me, or whether it's perhaps coming close to losing your own life, or being diagnosed with an illness, or whatever it is. And it's after those moments that we hear quite often that the people who survive and come out of that, they're the ones that go and do the things, whether it's climb a mountain, start a company, come out of the closet and say, I'm gay, or say, I love you, or I'm sorry, or whatever. And it's a shame, because although the catalyst often is a moment of darkness, it shouldn't be. I just don't think it should be. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm not a parent either, by the way, so I have no idea about how to correctly parent. I can imagine it's awfully tricky, but yeah, it's one of those things that we all, we're all trying to battle. And I also think getting the right. I'm learning this now. I'm 39 years old. I'm learning this now, and we hear it a lot. We're the average of the 5 closest people to us. I just feel that getting the right people around you who are of a positive, supportive, nature is important. Not that they just cheerlead everything you do; they can be constructive with criticism too. But yeah, I think the people around you is also really important.
Yeah. That's so right. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, it's not about having the people cheerleading, because that's just fulfilling your ego. And I know for a fact, because my wife will compliment me on things, but then she'll also bring me back down to a level where I'll be, okay, no, you are right. I was getting a bit ahead of myself, and you do need that. Seb, I want to go back a little bit to what you said before. The place where you were when you made that decision to make that change in your life and you created that list.
Mm.
I'm sure that was a scary moment for you to take that leap, to take that step, and then to actually not just write the list, put it down, it goes in a drawer and you forget about it, but to actually implement that into your life.
Oh, it's so funny you say that, because I'll oppose two things you said. One, it wasn't tough; it was easy. But two, I did put my list away and forget about it. So the story goes, I was 25 in Canada. I heard about Chris passing away. I created a list then and there, and then cut forward 2 years. I decided to pursue it. In that 2 years, though, I flew straight to Las Vegas and I married a stranger. I'd always wanted to do it. It was number 2 on this list that I had just created, right? I felt amazing. I felt instantly in control of my life. I felt empowered and I was happy. In a moment, I was happy. I then flew back to Australia and thought, I'd love to do this list. But then, of course, I got completely influenced by my environment. Like, I mentioned it to a few people. And they're like, you're silly. What do you mean you can't just do a list? So I started a business with a buddy, an awful small events company. We did inflatable movie screens. And that was 2 years or 2.5 years of my life. And in that period, I wasn't depressed. I don't want to be one of these people who exaggerate a story to prove a point. I wasn't depressed, but I just was down. I wasn't singing in the shower. I just wasn't happy, really. And I wondered what it was, and I never really knew. And then one night I went to dinner. I didn't have any money because the business wasn't turning over enough to pay me. And so my friend paid for my dinner. And on the way home, I was by myself. I just burst out crying. This was 2.5 years after creating my list in Canada, and which I'd forgotten about at this point. And I went home and I didn't know that I felt sad. I didn't know. It was like the first time it bubbled up. So the next day, I actually got my list out of that drawer where I had forgotten it, and I blew dust off of it. That isn't true, but just to create a picture. And I thought, I blew dust off of it, and I went down to the local newsagents, and I got a big map, a wall map of the world, and I stuck it up on the wall, and I put my 100 tags all over it, having already married a stranger. And I thought, that's it. I'm doing this. That's, if I can have all my energy went into work. As you know, you put all your energy into something. Usually it's work for people, and you'll get by it. You'll make it work. We're so capable as people. And I remember just thinking, newly at that point, with a map next to me now, imagine if I put the energy I'm putting into my work on my laptop, but just put it towards my map, my list of 100 things, just reallocated my energy. And I thought, oh, I could be happy. I could actually be happy. And that was the moment I did it. Someone mentioned to me this thing. I'm sure you've heard of it, the hero's journey. Have you heard of it?
No, go on.
So it's by a guy called Joseph Campbell, and the idea is it's the typical story for somebody to become their own hero. And so leads in movies will often follow the pattern of this hero's journey. And I think Luke Skywalker in Star Wars is the one that's referenced the most. But you have a call to action, and then at some point you sort of forget about it. But at a later point, it's brought back to your attention by an event or a person or a circumstance, and you finally choose to step out of your comfort zone into the unknown. And that's when the story of true growth and understanding happens. And you kind of have to cut ties and go for it, whether it's physically or whatever it might be. And then at the end of this, I think there's like 11 or 12 steps, you end up crossing back to where you started the journey, but full of knowledge and understanding of yourself, and you then share that with others. So that's kind of been my journey. Not to say I'm a lead in a movie, but I think it's everyone's journey. And it depends what hero means. Like, a hero doesn't mean you stand on a stage and people are applauding you. I think it's, you define it as you want. And for me, I just wanted to be happy. That was me being a hero. And so that's sort of where I am. And it's ongoing.
I love that. I love that, Seb. There's something that I want to ask. Actually, before I say this, you said about singing in the shower. I can't remember the last time I sung in the shower, so I'm going to make a mental note to do that daily.
Only if you like singing in the shower. I mean, I don't want you to be unhappy because you feel I'm curious, what's an indicator to you that allows you to understand that you're happy? For me, I do. I love singing in the shower.
Yeah, that is a very good question, and I'm glad you did ask it. I think about this a lot, and if I'm honest, I feel the most energy when I believe that I'm being of service to others in some format. So whether it's through these conversations that I know that other people will learn things from, or just things like that.
But what about when you get home? I get that. That's amazing, obviously. But when you get home and you sit down on your couch or you go to bed, and I'm just asking curiously, personally, even though I understand people are watching this, but I am just curious. What is it for you? So it's different for everyone. Like, how do you know that you are on track?
Yeah, I probably have a different answer several weeks or a month ago, but right now I'm reading a book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now.
Mm.
And that book is just entirely about being present in the now and not thinking about the past or the future. And so I'm kind of caught up a lot in that at the moment.
Right, right.
And not to avoid the question, because I probably don't have an exact answer for that, Seven. I'll have to think about that. But what I did want to ask you is, maybe I'll answer it a little bit later on. What I did want to ask you is,
yeah,
when you made that list, do you feel, I know you've said several times it was about making you becoming happier. Do you feel that some of them were chasing a dopamine hit or chasing that kind of high, as opposed to like getting it confused with being happy?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think that ultimately any meaningful list should emanate from an understanding of values. So anything that we do, skydive or what have you, marry a stranger in Vegas, whatever, that's the tip of the iceberg. I think like below the water is where our values sit, and that's the foundation. So at that point, 11, 12 years ago, because I was quite sheltered growing up and I felt, in kind of thought after my friend had passed, I felt that I just needed to get out there and liberate myself and go crazy and do things I'd never had given myself permission to do. Absolutely. Most of them were adrenaline. But, I skydived naked. I posed nude in an art class. I don't know why I said two ones that were naked to begin with. I walked across the country. I did stand-up comedy. I lived on a deserted island by myself for a week. And it goes on and on and on. I delivered a baby. And so a lot of them were about that dopamine hit. And I don't know enough, again, about the chemicals in the body, but I do know that's addictive. And so certainly there's an adrenaline rush that I really enjoyed. And then how does happiness go into, link with that? How does that dovetail? I don't know. Again, there's so much literature on it, and I won't lie, I don't really read that much because I like to try and figure things out myself a little. I'm going to change that soon, I think. Anyway, and I think happiness is kind of the frame of reference is you feel that in a moment. It's not an ongoing happiness, and maybe the ongoing version is called contentment or fulfillment potentially. But yeah, I mean, quite literally, I don't overcomplicate it. And whenever I do a workshop or a talk or I help people with their lists, I do talk about, what is your version of, for me, it was, I wanted to be happy. What is it for you? Is it that? And is it as simple as, what are some things that, could make you smile? So I think the delineation between things that are adrenaline fueled or more heart centered or things that will make you just sleep better at night, it's a mix. And that's why a list is so beautiful, because you can have ridiculous, silly things next to simple things, next to emotionally evocative things. I again, doing a workshop, a lot of people will come up with a list and I'll say, hey, everyone, share a goal. So you'll hear hundreds of, in a room, you'll hear hundreds of people share a goal. And they'll say, a common one is travel more. Not specific, but travel more. I did an event with a bank years ago now, but it's just a great example. And the CEO of this big bank in Australia stood up and said, everyone had gone, they said mountain climbing, skydiving, bungee jumping. He stood up and said, I want to say I love you to my dad. And he was in tears. So, I mean, the idea is, yeah, they can be adrenaline fueled for sure. But whatever it is, it doesn't have to be big or complex or mean. It just has to be relevant to you. And that, again, comes from values. I think I answered 7 questions and maybe not the one you even asked me. I hope that.
No, they were all good. They were all good answers. But what I was definitely thinking, and I'm glad you did say what you said, because it does make me think and believe that as you were going through those, everything that you have done up until now and what you probably will carry on doing, they are essentially steps and processes and purposes that are taking you well out of your comfort zone. And I think that is one of the things that I connected with when I first met you and heard about everything that you've done, is that society leads us in a way that we should be or want to be living a comfort life, the path of least resistance, which is the total opposite, really, of how we should be living our life. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about in his books about if you there's no one, nobody, nowhere, no time. Essentially, you need to not know about what is going to happen in the future. If you start to think too much about what's going to happen in the future, you'll move back into the past. You're not going to develop and move forward. And I think that everything you help other people to do through the lists is stepping away from their comfort zone, way beyond it. I mean, I remember hearing some of yours and some of the things you've done and just thinking, at first, shit, I could never do that. But then that's your brain trying to hold you back in that comfort zone, right? And you must see this a lot when you're doing the talks and seminars with people.
For sure. I think, getting at it, I agree entirely. Firstly, I think a list, so many things I want to say. Firstly, I'm somewhat celebrated for having a list that's interesting and abstract and crazy or what have you, right? What I used to think, oh, wow, it's all about the list. I must achieve 100 things. What I've learned, again, retrospectively, is that it's got nothing to do with the list. That's purely a vehicle. Everything I do allows me, I think, to get closer to a better understanding of who I am. I think that the secret to living a good life is being able to be you, know who you are, and then just be that in every aspect of your life. You do not need to be jumping out of a plane. It's a conversation. It's whatever. This idea that like Burning Man was on my list, right? And it's crazy. And as you know, you've been, right?
I have not. No, not yet.
Yeah, you should consider it. It's fun. And everyone out there, they're, oh, Burning, I can't wait till Burning Man comes around next year because it's just so awesome and I'm able to be me. It's like, well, no, I don't agree with that. I was talking about a friend of mine, Tyler, about this very thing years ago. Whatever you feel at Burning Man being just an example, you can bring that into every single day and every single interaction if you choose to. So, yeah, I think a list my story certainly isn't about a bucket list. I think deeper than that, it's about permission. I think it's about choice. I think it's about accountability. How do you work on all of those things? To your point of comfort zone, getting out of it. Absolutely. I think when you feel nervous, when you feel nervous, you don't know what's around the corner, but you throw yourself at something anyway. I think that's where you find where your edges are. I think that's where you find out you're actually far more capable than you first thought you would be. When you just mentioned that you heard me doing things and you said, oh, I couldn't do that. I can't even remember the things I was talking about, but absolutely you could. You could do far more than me, I'm sure. And I think when you do that, it actually better sets you up for times of, because anyone can be good in good times, but it better sets you up to be able to navigate through times of uncertainty and disruption, such as now, such as COVID, such as isolation, such as the social unrest that exists everywhere in America at the moment, with all the racism and da-da-da. So I just think that getting out of your comfort zone, you can never make too much of a point about it. It's crucial because if you don't get out of your comfort zone, you never expand. And growth is just such an important thing. We need to be growing, I think, all the time as individuals, as family units, as friendship circles, as communities, as businesses, as all that stuff.
Yeah. I think that's really important what you said, Seb. And the reason why is because I think I catch myself doing this all of the time. If I get invited to something, or if there's an opportunity for something and I sort of, maybe I'm feeling a bit tired and I'm not so sure about that. I'm going to leave it today, or I'll leave it tonight. When I think no and go all in on it, that's when the magic happens, because you have a conversation with somebody new, or you go up and say something to somebody that you never normally would do because you're too shy or too scared. And that's when the amazing things happen. That's when developments happen. And so often I'll say I sound like an older person now, but younger entrepreneurs, they often will ask me questions about, well, how do I network? How do I meet these people? How do I do these things? And it's not about jumping in DMs on people. It's about actual connection and about asking something in a way that you're going to get a valid answer back and make that person thinking that, as well, and I just think that, well, you probably agree, that's not taught in schools. That's not passed on enough.
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, I couldn't agree more. I do also think, though, that jumping into DMs and proactively reaching out is it's slightly different topic, but I've been filming a lot of firesides, like how to become a pilot, and we interview a pilot, how to become a movie star, how to become a scriptwriter, how to become a comedian. And there's a lot of patterns with these people who have successfully made it to a certain point. And one of them, there's many patterns, but one that just triggered just then as you were speaking was each of them say that community is crucial. Community and support is crucial. If you're lucky enough to have that through family and friends, naturally brilliant. It's always led them in a good direction. If you feel, though, that you don't have that natural support network, you need to proactively reach out to people who have done what you want to do. From photographers to actors to all the people that we've interviewed, stunt women, a love coach yesterday. You just reach out. So just a quick point. I think reaching out actually is a very good thing when it comes to trying to, achieve a specific goal. Now I forgot the other thing I was going to say. I agreed with everything you said. It'll come back to me. Oh, the other thing, going right back to the beginning of this conversation, the fifth regret of a dying person was, I wish I'd lived a life true to myself, not one expected by others.
That's so
I don't
important.
do things in a linear way. It's just like a Pulp Fiction style interview. I'll just go back to the beginning as I remember something. But yeah, what were we talking about? 'Cause I did have something on it.
In that case, then I'll go back to something you asked me. Then,
right.
There's two things I thought of about what makes me feel happy, or what I guess it's what really puts me in where I feel strong. Maybe that's not the right way to put it. Anyway, it's definitely being with my wife. The time that I spend with her and communicate with her, and the things we do, that provides the love and the warmth that makes me feel happy. And running makes me feel happy. That's a really weird thing as well, because that's a love-hate relationship because of what you go through when you're on a run. You'll feel the best you've ever felt, and then seconds later you feel the worst you've ever felt. Because you've run a marathon yourself. But I need to think more about that question, definitely.
Yeah, and maybe it's not about always feeling good in the moment, and like you say, like those that tension point, those resistance points are great if it's for the greater good. Because something, we could go in a million directions, but the trajectory from starting a goal to achieving it isn't always like point A to point B. You might go through every letter in the alphabet, and every letter isn't great. But as long as you understand that it's part of a bigger picture and you never stop, you'll get there. Yeah. I sound like a motivational speaker. Gosh.
Yeah, you are a motivational speaker.
I guess so. I am. I try not to sound like one though.
I want to go back again. There was one thing that I've seen the previous video. It's probably updated now, but I've seen your video several times, and the one that really touched me, and I'm sure it touched many people that's seen it, is when you ran the marathon with Mark. Can you just explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, number 26 on my list is to help a stranger, and because I had never really helped anyone before, and as my story got more popular somehow, I ended up doing a bit more TV stuff, and I get a lot of emails. But one of the first people who ever emailed me who asked me for help was Mark, and his story was that he was able-bodied up until his mid-20s. He went backpacking to Europe, got bitten by a tick, and contracted Lyme's disease, which turned him into a quadriplegic. Can't speak, needs a ventilator to sleep at night. It's awful. It's horrible. And he saw me, and he told me that he had a list as well, and that he wanted me to help him achieve list item number 1, shave his head. I flew to Melbourne. I actually didn't fly to Melbourne. I took a scooter. I on my list was to ride a scooter, a 50cc scooter across Australia. So I did that, happened to be in Melbourne, serendipitously, shaved Mark's head. And then in that moment, I said, what else can I help you with? And his carer told me Mark's always wanted to run a half marathon. And I said, well, how can I help him do that? Looking at him in his wheelchair, and he looked at me, and he said, push me. And I did understand him say that. So I pushed him, and it was the greatest thing I've ever done. Literally was the greatest thing I feel I've ever done. And it was this. It had nothing. Well, this is the interesting thing. I say it had nothing to do with my list, but I guess it did. Number 26 was to help someone, and he was just somebody else forgetting his condition that he had a goal too, and that was to complete a half marathon. And so together we could do something, because it's kind of that moment was looked at as such an act of charity. People say, oh, well done for being so kind. And in one element, sure, but still, the plain and simple of it is two people within an ecosystem of other people who have taken it upon themselves to try and live a life that's good for them, said, hey, we can collaborate and do something together. And we did. And it was lovely. And Mark's gone on to check off many things from his list. He's gone on to help more people, and as have I. But that was the beginning of a different journey for me. And that was one of course, being of service to people.
So let's talk a bit more about that then, Seb, because going from then to where you are now, that definitely went in a different trajectory from originally with your list. And you started to build this community of amazing people that want to be of service, want to help each other. Can you speak a bit about that?
Yeah. So the kind of story arc, if you will, from that was that a lot of people then started asking me for help, and I would help everyone that I could. Not financially, just through offering time, resources if I could. And it was great. I was sort of helping a lot of people traveling around, but then there became too many people for me to help. So all the people started asking me for help. If I felt it was fitting, I would then share that story with my growing community and saying, hey guys, this person over here needs help. Who can help them? And very quickly, people would go, I'll help them. So I was kind of like manually matchmaking acts of kindness, if you will, based on goals of some people and other people who just wanted to help other people. So without trying to make this too complicated, that got turned into a TV show, a show here in the US with Defy Media. 26 episodes, me helping 26 people. Seems glorious, but what happened was that we just basically had to turn down more people than we actually helped. And then that kind of led to me creating a platform for kindness, which is, it's sort of like the idea was it was like an online dating site, but for acts of kindness. So you go on there and look for people who you could help in non-financial ways. And I think, without getting into the weeds of all of that at the moment, I think it was, the premise of it all was my fundamental belief that people are good. People are good. I see it every single day. Why was I able to achieve all these things from my list? Is it because I'm special? No, it's because other people enabled me to do it. On pretty much every single occasion, I'm the spark, and we all are the spark to our ideas, but it's others that, help that spark turn into a fire. So I think everyone's innately wired, and we all have the ability to help others. We just don't know how to find them, and we don't have a conversation. I mean, I'm sure there's a million things you could help me with personally, and I'm sure perhaps, vice versa, but we just don't know. I don't know what's on your list, apart from singing in the shower, and I'm not going to help. So I feel like, predicated by the idea that everyone's ready to help, we just don't know how. That's kind of what I'm really focusing on now. This idea that creating a community, creating a platform, finally, well overdue, but a well-functioning platform for people to share meaningful goals and non-meaningful goals, but whatever's relevant to them. I think within that same ecosystem, it just naturally fosters people to connect and help one another out.
What it is so innate in us to be able to do that, Seb. What do you think it is that I have my own opinions on this. What do you think it is that is holding people back? If you look in the news and the media, which I don't do, it paints such a picture of the opposite of what you're saying. And let me give you a good example. A very close friend of mine, actually, it's his birthday today, Brady Silverwood. Incredible human being. He ran across America from New Jersey to San Diego in 3,331 miles, 218 days. And the stories that he's told me of just coming across amazing people in the middle of nowhere in America, in small towns, small villages, it paints a total different picture to what you would believe or see in the news.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really watch the news, but I hear that, and fear mongering and all that kind of stuff. And if you don't watch the news, you're uninformed. If you watch it, you're misinformed. I mean, yeah, I know that I see every single day goodness in people, and I think it's there. You just have to look for it. Unfortunately, like I said, I think that there lacks opportunity. It's not a general conversation we have. Hey, everyone, good morning. This is how I need help. But it would be such a great conversation to have if they were, genuine asks. Let's say, and also there's less example of it. We're always influenced by example in our environment, as we spoke about earlier. So I think the more that you see it happen, the more that it will end up happening. That ripple effect. I've seen that. Even from what I do, I get stories of people saying, "Hey, because I saw you do this thing, I went and did this thing. Because I saw you help someone, I went and helped somebody." So I think my take is that it's slowly bubbling towards the surface, and I feel that I'm in a very unique position, and one I'm very grateful for, where I can be a big part of that becoming mainstream. At the moment we're in discussions with a few people about another show based on kindness. Although kindness doesn't typically sell well, so that's an interesting thing to talk about another time. But yeah, no, it's there. It's absolutely there. I mean, as an example, just speaking to opportunity, there's a girl in LA. Her name's Shana. She needs a kidney. She's on. She has end-stage renal failure, and she's on dialysis. Which, if you don't know, they say generally, if you're on dialysis, you have 5 years to live, roughly. If you're in need of a kidney, the donor list is 10 years to get a kidney. So it's essentially a 5-year death sentence if you look at it in that crass way. So, the onus is on the person who needs the donation to try and find somebody. So we're helping her. So every keynote that I give, I'm fortunate to give a lot of talks, I say to the audience, whether it's in person or now, of course, I said it, I did a keynote last night to an organization in Australia at 10 p.m. LA time. And at the end, I said to them, as I do with every keynote, hey, this is Shana's story. She needs a kidney. If anyone's interested, please email me. And every single time I'll get at least one email. Now, why is that? Is it because these people are particularly special? To some degree, sure. But more so, I think it's you just shine a light on an opportunity for people to be good and you activate it. I think that everyone has a switch to be activated that bubbles up and activates their kindness muscle, if you will. So I don't know. I don't think it's really in the interest of the media to share necessarily good stories. Certainly the way it's structured at the moment, but with the advent of social media and the way it's all going, there are so many well-intentioned people and organizations out there promoting acts of kindness and good news week. I think I just saw on my phone before I came on this call. So I think it's changing, and I think you choose to see the world that you think exists, if that makes sense. Maybe that doesn't make sense, but I think you know what I mean.
It makes 100%. It makes sense, Seb, and because it's kind of like an algorithm, right? If you're on Instagram or another social media platform, the algorithm deals you what the algorithm thinks you want to see. So if you start interacting with more negative things, you're going to see more of that. If you start interacting with more positive things, you'll see more of that. And it's very easy to change and teach the algorithm. It's just having us being able to teach our own algorithm.
Yeah. So why do I always get those emails from people saying, would you like a bigger penis? How do
You must be talking about it around your phone, Seb. That's all I can say.
Just thought I'd ask for a friend.
So you mentioned about a kindness muscle. Give us some examples of what you think people can do that could strengthen their kindness muscle.
Well, I think it happens immediately. I think as soon as if you see someone do something nice, if you saw someone go across the road and give a homeless person $20, you'd be more inclined to go, I think I'm going to do that next time. So it's inspiring. And I think that's an example of your kindness muscle being activated. I think being walked through the process of doing it is something that allows you to feel that as well. And once you feel it yourself, you can't help. I mean, if you do something kind, you're more than likely to tell someone. We all want to be able to say, oh no, I did that and I didn't tell a soul. But we live in a day and age where social media and self-validation is important. So it's nice to position ourselves as kind people. Why not? So I think if you start doing it and you start posting it, it allows you to do it more and more and more. And again, I think the ripple effect is other people see it and they start to do the same. But I obviously talk and teach a lot about how do you do things, how do you achieve meaningful goals, and the key to that, in the same way, the key to being kind is just do it. Just do it. Why overcomplicate it? Think about something that would satisfy whatever that desire is. Go and do it. In Australia yesterday, I'm from Australia. In Australia yesterday, there's an organization called, Are You OK? And every year it's an annual event called Are You OK Day. And it's awesome. And it's about mental wellness and just checking in on people, because we don't, again, often express ourselves, going back to one of the regrets of the dying people in Bronnie Ware's book. And it's a national campaign, and everyone asks each other, hey, how you doing today, buddy? You good? And you try and have a proper conversation. So it's sort of integrating simple principles into day-to-day life. And yeah, it's just a matter of doing it. Yeah, that's it.
It made me think of an old neighbor that I had. And whenever I'd see him in passing, I'd ask him how he was. And he would always say something that seemed strange at the time. He'd say something like, I am very blessed, or I am very grateful. It would never be, yeah, I'm fine. And it would always make me think. And when you were talking, it sort of, we don't, we're too shy of expressing who we are to other people in
Yeah.
day-to-day life. And I think that example that you said of Are You Okay Day, that really should be every day for everybody. We
Sure.
should really be communicating in a way with other people that we're meeting and actually wanting to know, are you okay? Is there anything I can do to be of service to you or help you? But it's, yeah, it's just, I do think that you mentioned about shining a light on people, and I definitely believe that, you said just do it. When I think of you as a person, regardless of the list and the things you've done, I feel the energy from you that you are a no bullshit person. You'll just go and do it. You'll think and you'll do. Whereas a lot of people will think, don't do, and they just keep thinking, ruminating, and then it disappears, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, I think thought is interesting. It's important at times for sure. I don't just jump in because there's this assumption that I just go out there and I'm somehow bulletproof and fearless, and it's not true. It's absolutely not true. A funny example is I wanted to kiss a celebrity. It was on my list. Was that ever on your list? Was that ever a thing? I don't want to feel like I'm alone here.
No.
It wasn't on your. I don't believe you. I think we all have kissed a celebrity on it. So anyway, I ended up doing it with Sharon Osbourne, right? Now, the story is pretty funny. I was speaking at the same event as her in Australia. I was the keynote finishing speaker or whatever. She was the one before. And I saw her in the audience, and I thought, oh my God, that's a celebrity. I could ask her. So I plucked up the courage to ask her, and she said, get on stage. And we kissed a proper, what we would call in Australia, pash. She stuck her tongue halfway down my throat. It was brilliant. Now, everyone who heard that story assumed, oh, of course he can do it. He can do anything. Absolutely not true. I was sweating. I had it took me so many attempts to like ask her in a crowd of 1,000 people with media there and stuff. And, I eventually did do it. And it was one of the scariest things I've ever done. So yeah, there's absolutely a lot to be said for taking action. Equally, you can't dismiss thought. And, when you have to understand, the process of putting a list together isn't about, well, I want to just do all these things and go and do it. You need to put thought into your values. You need to come up with an action plan on occasions, even if it's a quick one. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's considered action. It's considered action, but like you say, you don't want to ruminate on it too much because you can definitely overcomplicate things. And I forgot what's that expression? It's like something fatigue. You do all the reading, you do all the research, you do everything, and you don't go anywhere. You're just spinning your wheels, but you tell yourself that you're progressing. Anyway, so that's definitely, whatever that term is, it's definitely a real thing. But yeah, the same thing goes for kindness, absolutely. And it comes from, thought's important. That should be the name of my next book.
Well, give us a bit of advice then, Seb, because you mentioned values. You should put some thought and time into what your values are when you make this list. But if I think about that, really, do many people actually know what their true values are?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think a lot of us do from a work perspective because many of us have to do those work value exercises. But I think there's 4 steps to creating a list. I think the first one is permission, which is the easiest one probably. Well, it's the easiest to actually do. It's quite hard to actually execute, but just tell yourself, I'm giving myself permission to be happy, and I'm going to give myself an allotted amount of time to think about this and what that means, what my version of happiness is. Don't wait till you almost die. Don't have to. I think second is reflection. I think just, although you can't change it, it's important to know where you came from. An exercise in this workshop, I've got an online workshop, by the way, and it's got all this in it, but we do a eulogy. If today was your last day, and I only do it because it's exactly what I did for myself. If you just write a eulogy up until this point now, what could you say? Were you the perfect lover, friend, brother, family member, colleague, community member? Did you strive to achieve all your dreams? Were you, a community member, blah, 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 blah? Or is it the opposite? When I did that, I realized it was the opposite. I wasn't happy. But in that allows you to understand, that's how I've been living. I don't enjoy that. If I keep going in the same direction, I won't be happy. I need to change. So it's a realization. So then I think you then look at your values. I do it through, I call it the wheel of life. If you imagine a wheel and there's spokes to the bike wheel, and each spoke is a collection of your values. So, like I said at the beginning of my journey, there was adventure and liberation and freedom and those types of things. And I put it all into one spoke. And that spoke to a lot, that spoke meant it kind of led to, the jumping out of the planes and all those type of things. But equally, there was a lot about connection. There's a lot about spirituality. And so those were the different spokes for me. So if you understand what your spokes are, i.e. your general grouped values, that is the perfect spot to then actually make a list, which is step 4. So you have permission, reflection, spokes, and then create your list based off an understanding of your spokes, your values. And then the 4 steps to activating a list, again, it's so simple, but it's just all I've ever done. Step 1 is choose an item, just choose one. Create an action plan for it is step 2. So who, what, when? Who are the people involved? What do you actually need to do? And when can you do it? Can you start today? The answer is often yes. Or is it something that's seasonal, cyclical, whatever? So it gives you a time frame. So that's your action plan. And then you just pull the trigger. You just pull the trigger. That's where you don't have to think. You already have done all the thinking, then you stop. Then it's action. And after you've pulled the trigger and done all you can to at least, shoot that flare into the sky, I think then you look at other things on your list and then shoot those flares too. It doesn't have to be one goal at a time. And I've just remembered that thing I wanted to say earlier, which kind of speaks to this, if we have time, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The idea is our self-belief, because a lot of us don't believe we can do things, right? Because we underestimate ourselves. I think that's what triggered that when you said that earlier. If you imagine a triangle, at the top of the triangle is belief. The next corner down is action, and then across is results. I think that if you believe we all know someone who's super positive, right? The world's good. They're, nothing bad's going to happen to them. They're optimistic. That's their belief. And it, of course, influences their actions through the day. They whistle, they sing, they talk to someone, they ask something, they're curious, they're inquisitive, they're optimistic. They, smile, they make other people feel good. They go, the result directly of that is, they probably will make a friend or have a breakthrough with a business thing or, whatever. And that will reinforce their belief at the top of the triangle. And then, that just reinforces itself. That's creating a habit. The other side to that is someone who's negative, and that story too. They act negative, blah, blah, blah. The result is they're negative. They go home at night and they go, oh, I was right. The world's negative. So it's just important. Like the belief is, you can't really change your belief just like that. Oh, the world is great. You can't change a result because it's a byproduct of something, and that something is action. So I believe that the only thing that we really, truly can control instantly is how we act, even if you don't believe it. And so, that's why in this online workshop, we get people out of their comfort zones and we just say, do something now. And there's not, there's options. You do one of these things. I know you're fearful. I know you think this isn't going to be possible. Do it. And then people go, oh, I did do that. Wow. The result's slightly different. And it just ever so slightly tweaks in a positive direction their belief, so that the next action they go, I think I can do this. And then they create that positive habit and blah, blah, blah. Everyone lives happy ever after.
Yeah. When you were saying that, Seb, I don't think you give yourself enough credit where it's due. I do believe that everything that you have worked towards and what you do now really instills, like you said, it instills the belief and enthusiasm and inspiration into others. And that's what we need more of. We definitely need more people like yourself that are really reaching out and helping others, whether it's through the talks you give to top CEOs, or whether it's through everyday people, or whether it's through your interactions. I definitely feel we need more of you. I'd watch another TV show of you. I'd watch a movie of you. That's for sure.
That's really nice of you to say. Yeah, I think, we are all. Oh God, I sound like someone who lives in Venice, which I do. But we're all brilliant. We're all brilliant. We just haven't all, activated it yet. And and it's constant. We're all on that journey. So, I hope to just become a better version of myself always, and I hope everyone else feels the same about themselves. And because if we advance as an individual, you advance as a community. And in times like this, again, where there's so much social unrest, whether it's personally or again within the workplace, where there's so much disruption at the moment, if we understand values and we as an individual you assure yourself that you are trying to grow, you will do so, and so too will everyone else around you. The idea of making a list isn't selfish, it's selfless. And, I ask this question a lot: what's on your list? And I urge you and anyone else who's listening to actually consider that. Even if it's something silly, it all helps. It all turns the dial. It nudges the needle slightly further to the positive.
What is there left, or is there something that you have a burning desire for that you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I've still got 24 items on my list. I haven't done all mine, and I stopped. I mean, actively seeking out things on my list because I made it 12 years ago, and not everything on there really resonated with me anymore. And the idea of helping people and building community and being of service is kind of where I've been going. But I've realized that lists should change. Lists should change because they're based on values, and our values do naturally change as we gravitate through life and grow. I'm different to what I was 10 years ago. So are you, and we'll both be different in another 10 years. And as such, our goals should change. So the remaining 24, 26 items, I'm actually going to redo. I'm in the process of doing it. I'm going to be doing it with the first intake of this course, actually, this online workshop thing. So the first month, this is not to give my product a plug, I promise you.
Please do.
Well, okay. Have you ever felt, no, we're going to take on 10 people for October and take them through the whole course, the 8 steps, plus Zoom calls in between each step. And I'm going to do the course with those 10 people. So it'll be a bit of a competition. Anyone can follow me online and enter. But yeah, I'm gonna start redoing them, and I've already started thinking about it. And writing a script is on there. I have an idea that's been in my head for a long time, and that again, that's maybe more of a selfish thing, maybe not, but it's different. And the thing I got rid of for that particular one was cross a desert. That was on my list at a certain time. That seemed really exciting to me, but I've done a lot of things that are of a similar ilk to crossing a desert. So now it's more about that creative. I'd love to, I just wrote down this the other day. I'd love to be a mentor. I know, yeah, I'd love to be a mentor. And I also wrote down, I'd like to be mentored. And because I've never really had a figure like that in my life. So yeah, lists change. I'm a perfect example of it. So, but I'll refine that as I do this, this amazing 8-step course, which everyone should do with me.
I think everybody should do it with you. I'd like to do it for sure, Seb. Actually, there's a good friend of mine who I do need to connect you with, Jai, who runs Creative Futures, fellow Australian of you. For everyone that's American watching or listening, I am English, Seb is Australian. I'll connect you with him because they take cohorts and they put them through this program, and these are typically people that are of a low-income background or ex-incarcerated, and help them to become creative. I think you'd be a very good mentor to people in that program.
It's really interesting. I've got a good friend who runs this thing called The Last Mile, which is slightly different, but it's based out of originally San Quentin prison, and it's a program to help inmates become. They school them to become coders, like technology coders. And there's also a self-development piece to that. And I went in and I spoke to those inmates at San Quentin. It was incredible. But yeah, I mean, helping, yeah. This is another interesting thing, and we'll have another talk another time about business. But even putting together a workshop, an interesting point is, well, how much is this? And it's interesting because you have courses that are worth thousands of dollars. And I think that my course will change lives. It will change lives. It has. The physical courses that I've done before have changed lives. That's priceless. You can put any price tag on it. But yeah, we're all here. We're all in this fight together. So I want to make it as available to people as possible. So just a side note, isn't it interesting that what is value? What is money? I could literally go, it should be $1,000 or it should be $10. No difference. I've just decided. That's another thing. Nothing matters.
That is very true, Seb. Nothing matters. Before we wrap this up, I know you've given some incredible advice of how people can set up their lists, but just give me one thing someone can implement immediately that can set them off in the right direction.
If you write down a meaningful goal, you're 42% more likely to achieve it. If you get an accountability buddy for that meaningful goal, you're 95% more likely to achieve it. So for anyone listening, take a moment now to get your phone out, text somebody close to you your number one goal in life, no matter what it is, and ask them to hold you accountable. That's it.
I love that. I really love that, Seb. Tell me where, tell us where everyone can go and find more information about you and the course you have coming up.
Yeah, so 100things.com, 100things.com is my website. Instagram is Seb100things. Yeah, that's, yeah, find me. I'm there. I'm pretty easy to find, I think. And yeah, sorry for that out of taste joke about the email spams I was getting.
Not out of taste at all between an Australian and an Englishman, believe me.
Right.
Seb, you're an incredible human being. I love the way you shine your light and passion and energy on others, and I can't wait to come and give you a big hug in real life. And I would love to be a part of the course that you're going to be running, and anything obviously that I can help you with. You can reach out to me.
I appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to chat about it on your platform. I love hearing what you're up to. It's so creative and impactful, and I like it. And I'm just noticing on your door behind you it says Rodeo Room. Is there a mechanical bull on the other side of this camera?
I think it's rodeo as in the road as opposed to rodeo as in bull. So no.
Interesting. Okay, I like that. Thanks, mate. You're the best.
Take care, mate. We'll speak soon.
Bye. Thank you.